You know that little pulsing blue dot on your phone's map?
Oh, yeah, the one we're all constantly staring at.
Right. Like you're walking down a street you've walked 100 times before, but you still check it. We just rely on it so completely.
We really do. I mean, most of us check our phones dozens of times a day. We're terrified of missing an email or, terrified of a delayed flight.
Terrified of just being lost.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We live in this era where we basically demand absolute certainty from our environment.
It's exhausting, honestly. Which is why this deep dive into our source material for No Signal is just so refreshing.
It really is an antidote to all that anxiety.
Yeah. We are completely unplugging today. We're stepping away from the alerts and the meticulously planned digital itineraries. We are journeying back to the year 2001.
A time before smartphones.
A time where travelers' only safety net was, well, the kindness of strangers and their own intuition. And that brings us to the core question for today's edition of No Signal.
Which is such a profound one.
Right. What happens when you strip away the GPS, the smartphones, and that whole illusion of control, and you simply surrender yourself to the unpredictable flow of the universe?
It's a question I think we all need to carry with us today. And to explore it, we're picking back up with Macy.
Yes. So, for a really quick recap for anyone joining us, Macy is a Japanese backpacker who left his hometown of Sapporo up in Hokkaido on December 17th, 2000.
Right, and his very ambitious goal was to hitchhike the entire length of Japan before heading across Asia.
But a delayed ferry to Korea forced him into this massive detour. So today, our mission is to explore what happens when Macy leaves a very comfortable oasis and is violently thrust back into the harsh, thrilling and honestly deeply spiritual reality of the open road.
We're picking this up in late January 2001. And that oasis you mentioned, it provides a really fascinating study in microcultures.
Yeah, it's the Dynaland Ski Resort in Gifu Prefecture.
Right, deep in the mountainous center of Japan.
Macy basically takes this live-in resort job to make some cash while he waits for his ferry situation to sort out. And it's basically a giant college dorm on a mountain.
Oh, completely. Packed for 20-somethings, massive after-work parties.
Co-ed cafeterias. It's this vibrant, chaotic atmosphere. But for Macy, it's also kind of an alien planet.
Because he's a guy from the snowy northern island of Hokkaido.
Right. And the culture shock hits him immediately. It wasn't the dialect or the weather that threw him off first, it was the soup.
The soup. I love this detail so much.
He goes to the cafeteria, right, and instead of the mild white miso he's used to up in Hokkaido, they serve him this rich, dark red miso soup.
He is completely baffled by it.
It's so funny. It's like thinking you're just in a different state, but suddenly the fundamental rules of soup have just changed.
Right. It's this subtle, everyday reminder that he is very, very far from home. But the cultural friction there goes way deeper than the cafeteria menu.
It really does, because if you look at the broader picture of Japanese winter sports in 2001, the landscape was highly fractured.
Yeah, you have to remember the context. At that time, snowboards were actually still banned at several major resorts in Hokkaido.
Wait, completely banned?
Completely. They were viewed as this counterculture nuisance. Traditional skiers felt snowboarders tore up the snow differently, or they just sit blindly in the middle of the runs.
Oh, right, representing that kind of rebellious youth culture.
Exactly. And the older traditional resort managers up north just wanted to suppress it entirely.
But down at Dynaland and Gifu, the demographic was completely inverted. Like 80% of the people on that mountain were snowboarders.
And here comes Macy, who is a hardcore, traditionally trained mogul skier.
He is a minority within a minority, serving red miso soup to a mountain full of snowboarders.
He initially feels totally out of place.
But, and this is what I love about him, he refuses to isolate himself. In just 2 weeks, he completely bridges this massive cultural gap by basically leveraging his technical skills.
He's got incredible initiative. He teams up with this young leader named Kaoru, who had somehow mastered the top-tier mogul techniques from the Finnish national team.
Which is a huge deal, right?
Oh, absolutely. The Finnish technique in 2001 was the gold medal standard for the sport. It was popularized by skiers like Jane Latella.
How is it different from normal skiing?
Well, unlike traditional carving, this technique required the skier's upper body to remain eerily silent and completely upright.
Okay.
Meanwhile, the knees act like these rapid-fire pistons, just absorbing the massive impact of the bumps. It was aggressive, it was fast, and incredibly demanding physically.
So Macy masters this technique with Kaoru, and then he partners with a pro snowboarder named Kamita.
Right. And Kamita has access to this massive exclusive jump on the mountain,
which is usually restricted to just a few elite snowboarders because of the high risk. But Marcy convinces them to open it up to skiers.
He even invites his senior skier friends from Hokkaido, like this guy Toru, to come down to Gifu to perform on it.
It's amazing. He takes two completely segregated subcultures, the Hokkaido traditional skiers and the Gifu progressive snowboarders, and literally builds a bridge for them to fly off of together.
It really is a brilliant piece of grassroots diplomacy. I mean, he uses physical mastery and shared adrenaline to just dissolve a cultural prejudice.
Okay, but let's unpack this for a second, because this makes his next decision completely baffling to me.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
Right. He has a great job. He is leveling up his physical skills with these elite Finnish techniques. He just created this massive, successful crossover event.
And there's a huge mogul tournament coming up at the resort.
Exactly. He could easily win, become the undisputed local hero, and, let's be honest, win the hearts of all the local girls. But instead of entering the tournament, he packs his bag and leaves. Why on earth would he do that?
Because he recognized the danger of paradise.
The danger of paradise. I like that.
It touches on this essential philosophy of travel, particularly from an Eastern perspective of non-attachment. It's the concept of anicca, the recognition of impermanence.
Because in Western travel narratives, the ultimate goal is usually conquest, right? You find the untouched beach or the perfect local community and you plant your flag. You try to own the experience.
Yeah, it's like getting the corner office of backpacking. You finally get the view, so you put your feet up on the desk and stop working.
Right, exactly. But Marcy realizes something pretty profound about his own ego here.
He knows that if he stays for the tournament, wins the trophy, gets the girl, his ego is going to attach to that local identity.
He'll become the king of Dynaland, and
Yeah.
he will never leave that mountain.
The comfort will literally become a cage. So he intentionally walks away from a perfect situation to honor the integrity and really the flow of his original journey.
Knowing when to move on before comfort becomes a trap, that is such a powerful lesson. But unfortunately, the universe did not reward him for that spiritual growth with an easy road.
Not at all.
The narrative abruptly shifts from this snowy, fun-filled paradise back to the gritty, unforgiving reality of hitchhiking. Marcy gets a ride to Osaka and spends the night with a skier friend named Takeshi.
And this specific stay introduces one of the most grounding moments in his entire journey.
It really does. Before Marcy leaves the next morning, Takeshi's mother serves him a classic, traditional Japanese home-cooked breakfast. Rice, miso soup, and grilled salmon.
And Marcy is so emotionally moved by this meal that he actually eats 2 pieces of salmon.
Which, when you look at how transactional our lives are now, like checking into an Airbnb with a keypad code or grabbing a mass-produced pastry at a hotel buffet while you're scrolling your phone and not making eye contact with anyone,
Yeah.
this moment just feels so incredibly intimate.
Life on the road rapidly strips away your sense of entitlement. When you're sleeping on floors and constantly moving, a simple, warm piece of fish given freely by a mother isn't just calories.
It's an emotional anchor.
Precisely.
Oh.
It represents a maternal care that he has been entirely devoid of for weeks. It is literally the taste of home when you are far from your own.
And he desperately needed that anchor because the subsequent drop-off is brutal.
Let's set the survival stakes here.
Okay, so it is January 26th. Marcy's goal is to hitchhike all the way from Osaka down to Kumamoto in Kyushu.
Which is a massive distance.
And he has to make it in a single day because he has absolutely no friends to stay with along the entire route. If he doesn't make it, he has to pay for a hotel.
And that would break his massive 40-day streak of free accommodation. The psychological pressure to maintain that streak is just immense.
And the physical conditions are even worse. At 9:30 in the morning, he is dropped off at a highway service area in Osaka. It is a freezing torrential downpour, and he is wearing a cheap, leaky raincoat.
It's a nightmare scenario.
Imagine stepping out of a warm, loving family kitchen straight into a freezing monsoon, knowing you have hundreds of miles to go and your only vehicle is your own thumb, is the ultimate survival shock.
And under that level of physical distress, when your core temperature is dropping and your clothes are completely soaked, the prefrontal cortex, which handles your strategic planning, starts to surrender to the brain's more primal survival instincts.
You stop thinking about the map and start thinking about immediate warmth.
Exactly. Which leads to a critical error.
Yeah, he manages to catch a few rides, getting to Hyogo and then Okayama, but he basically takes rides that funnel him onto the Chigoku Expressway instead of the coastal Sanyo route.
Which was a massive unforced error.
Right, because the Sanyo Expressway hugs the coastline, it connects major industrial cities, and it's packed with long-haul trucks and business travelers going exactly where he needs to go.
But the Chigoku Expressway cuts inland, straight through the mountainous spine of western Japan.
So by trading long-term strategy for the short-term warmth of the first car that would take him, he basically funnels himself into a geographic dead zone.
The traffic volume on that rural route in the dead of winter is just a fraction of the coastal road.
And that panic's human response leads us to the absolute climax of despair in this journey.
It's so intense.
It's now 5000 p.m. Marcy is stranded at the Taishikukyo parking area in Hiroshima Prefecture, deep in the mountains. It is pitch black outside.
Not a single car in the parking lot.
The tiny service area cafeteria is closing up for the night. And to make matters worse, a highway patrol officer spots him and firmly warns him that hitchhiking is strictly prohibited there.
It is the absolute void. You have societal rejection layered on top of physical isolation and freezing temperatures.
If you or I were in that situation today, the panic would be immediate, right? We would be frantically refreshing a rideshare app, searching for a cell signal.
Looking for the nearest train station on our screens.
Right, we'd be trying to buy our way out of the discomfort using technology. But Marcy doesn't have that luxury. He has been on the road for 40 days.
He's faced blizzards, exhaustion, total uncertainty.
And instead of fighting the reality of the situation, he achieves this state of absolute zen. It's incredible. He calmly walks into the cafeteria just before it closes and orders a simple bowl of cake soba, hot broth, and noodles.
And the sources note he does this specifically to, quote, change his energy.
Yeah.
This is a vital psychological mechanism rooted in Eastern traditions regarding ki, or life energy. There's this deep somatic understanding that your internal state dictates your external reality.
Okay, explain that a bit more.
Well, if he stands out in that dark parking lot, radiating desperation, fear, and freezing tension, his body language is going to repel the very help he needs. Any driver pulling in would sense that frantic energy.
They just keep driving.
Exactly. So by sitting down, consuming warm broth, and actively resetting his mindset, he is practicing the ultimate form of surrender.
So he eats his noodles, changes his energy, and walks back out into the freezing, empty dark. And what happens? 15 minutes later, a single car pulls into the parking lot.
It's almost mystical.
Right. Now, usually Marcy is incredibly picky and strategic about his routes. I mean, that's how he got into this mess to begin with. But here, he completely abandons strategy.
He channels the energy of the Japanese punk rock band, the Blue Hearts.
Yes. He practically begs the driver, like, I don't care where it is, just take me anywhere.
Because when the illusion of control is fully shattered, raw survival takes over. Any forward momentum is better than freezing in place.
The driver agrees to take him, but there is a major catch. The driver is getting off the highway at the very next local interchange.
Oof.
Yeah. Marcy's highway strategy has spectacularly failed. It is now 7.00. He gets dropped off at a local interchange, which forces him to walk in the pitch black along rural streets to find a local road to try and hitchhike from.
The survival stakes here hit their absolute peak.
There are no well-lit highway service areas anymore, no captive audiences of drivers stretching their legs, just a guy on a dark road in the middle of nowhere.
But this is actually where the inherent vulnerability of hitchhiking transforms into its greatest strength.
Really? How so?
On a local road at night, the ecosystem of drivers changes entirely. You are no longer dealing with transient long-haul truckers. You're dealing with locals heading home from work, people who are deeply rooted in their own communities.
Oh, that makes sense. And just as things look their absolute bleakest, around 8:00 p.m., a local Hiroshima man pulls over and picks him up. And the dynamic of this rescue is just brilliant.
It's so funny.
The driver finds out Marcy has traveled all the way from Hokkaido but has never eaten authentic Hiroshima-style okonomiyaki, and the driver is absolutely appalled.
He can't believe it.
He doesn't just offer to buy Marcy dinner. He physically drives Marcy to his absolute favorite hole-in-the-wall local bar. He shows Marcy off to the bartender and his friends like a prized catch.
It really highlights a beautiful reciprocal economy inherent to this era of travel.
Yeah.
Because hitchhiking is not a transactional free ride.
Right. It's an exchange of social currency.
Exactly. The driver gets an amazing, unexpected story to tell his buddies at the bar. You know, the wild traveler from the snowy north. And Marcy receives a hot meal, a beer, and a vital lifeline. It's an exchange of fierce local pride for a traveler's deep gratitude.
It's just an amazing human connection. But after this unexpected party, reality finally sets in. It is 11:00 p.m. The driver drops Marcy off in a city called Hatsukaichi, which is still in Hiroshima Prefecture.
He's still so far from his goal.
Marcy looks at the map, he looks at the clock, and realizes Kumamoto is mathematically impossible. For the first time since leaving Sapporo on December 17th, nearly 40 grueling days, his streak of free accommodation is dead.
It had to end eventually.
He has to pull out his wallet and actually pay for a room.
And even the logistics of finding a room in 2001 are an adventure themselves.
Right, because you can't just sort by price on an app. It's midnight. He is wandering around a strange city in the dark, just looking for glowing signs. He passes these neon-lit love hotels, which charge about 3,000 yen for a short stay.
And he seriously debates staying in one just for the story.
He does, but he ultimately rejects the idea. He realizes that checking into a neon love hotel all by himself at midnight is just too profoundly depressing.
Which is a deeply relatable human moment. You're physically exhausted, shivering in the dark, forced to weigh your own dignity against your rapidly depleting wallet.
It's a tough call.
Think about today. You'd secure a sterile business hotel room on your phone in 3 seconds, right? You'd never have to interact with a single human or face the weird underbelly of a city's nightlife. But in 2001, you had to physically navigate the awkwardness of the real world just to find a pillow.
He finally bites the bullet and settles on a standard business hotel, the Miyajima Coral Hotel, for 8,000 yen. It is a massive, painful hit to his backpacker budget.
But he survived the day.
He did. Which brings us right back to the core question we asked at the beginning. What happens when you surrender to the flow?
You get a day like this.
Right. Look at the extremes of Marcy's day. He woke up in a warm home, eating a mother's home-cooked salmon. He descended into a freezing, terrifying, pitch-black void on the side of a mountain highway. And he ended the night drinking beer and laughing with complete strangers in a local bar over okonomiyaki.
It is a perfect microcosm of the human experience when it's lived entirely without a safety net.
It really makes you wonder about the future of travel. With AI tools now capable of generating these second-by-second itineraries, optimizing every single route, and predicting every minor inconvenience before it even happens.
Are we engineering serendipity out of our lives entirely?
That's the question. Because if an algorithm never allows you to make the wrong choice, you'll never end up stranded in the dark, which means you'll never be rescued by a local who demands you eat their city's favorite food.
If we eliminate all the friction, we might just be eliminating the magic along with it.
Oh, wow. That is a wild thought to chew on. But we have to leave it there for today. Marcy is alive, but he is 8,000 yen poorer. He is still stranded in Hiroshima, and he desperately needs to figure out how to cross the ocean to the island of Kyushu.
The road only gets harder from here. Will he finally make it to Kumamoto?
We'll have to see. Thank you so much for tuning in to No Signal. Remember to join us for our next deep dive to find out exactly how this wild, unpredictable journey continues.